trapping, no capping, trying to feed my baby now. Yeah, I keep the 50, you dig your grave, I'ma lay you in. I ain't with the back and forth beefing all on the internet. I'ma catch you lacking in traffic, nigga, and leave you there. Shit, I know some niggas will cut you, split you from ear to ear. Cutthroat to the gristle, my nigga, rest in peace, Soldier Slim.
Slum 1200, GGI mob shit, and I'm back. So we gonna be talking about the Techwood housing projects in Atlanta. It will be called the Techwood Homes. So it says Techwood Homes was an early public housing project in Atlanta, Georgia, in the United States, opened just before the first houses. The whites-only Techwood Homes replaced an integrated settlement of low-income people known as Tan Yard Bottom or Tech Flats. It was completed on August 15, 1936, but was dedicated on November 29th of the previous year by U.S. President Franklin D. Roosevelt. The new whites-only apartments included bathtubs and electric ranges in each unit, 189 of which had garages, central laundry facilities, a kindergarten, and a library was also provided. Tech's Homes was demolished in advance of the 1996 Olympics and is now Centennial Place Apartments. The complex was designed by Georgia Tech alumni and architect Flippin' David Barge and Stevens. Later, Stevens and Wilkerson organized by Charles Forrest Palmer, a real estate developer who had become an expert on public housing and would later head up both the newly created Atlanta Housing Authority and the Chamber of Commerce. The landscaping was designed by Edith Henderson, who also designed the neighboring Clark Howell Homes with her partner Grace Campbell. The name came from Techwood Drive, in turn named for nearby Georgia Tech. The project included a 300-student dormitory for Georgia Tech, McDaniel Dormitory, commonly referred to as Techwood Dome. It was run by the Atlanta Housing Authority. Throughout the 1970s, 1980s, and 1990s, the area was synonymized with urban blight in Atlanta. Techwood Homes was built on land cleared by the demolishing of flats, a de facto integrated Shantytown adjacent to downtown. Home to 1,061 families, mostly poor, 28% of African Americans. The Public Works Administration replaced the Shantytown with 604 units for white families, only with income qualifiers out of range of many former inhabitants. The neighboring Clark Howell Homes was built in 1941 in less institutional style. A 10-Ek Brown was the architect. Clark Howell was also reserved for whites until 1968, with an all-black counterpart at the University Homes Project, built in 1938 near Atlanta University Center. Except for a few historical buildings, Techwood Homes was demolished in 1996 before the 1996 Summer Olympics. And the neighboring Clark Howell Homes are now a mixed-use area called Centennial Place. The first phase opened in 1996, just before the Centennial Olympics. Hence, the new name. Former residents were relocated to other areas, given Section 8 vouchers to assist with the rent. Only 78 of the original residents were able to move back into Centennial Places, which had far fewer subsidized units than Techwood Homes. So I remember me doing a ep about the projects and me saying that, I won't say I said the St. Thomas or the Desire, one of these projects in the city was the first projects built in America, but actually Google had made a mistake, because Techwood Homes would be the first project in the United States, being built in 1936, with the rest of the projects following. Wine, what's up, Kobe, brother? I see you. So I had to cover the Techwood housing development because a lot of people went to commenting saying that Techwood was the first, and I actually hadn't heard of Techwood. way before I even did this, because Alpha Mega was from Techwood, and I actually saw a documentary on Alpha Mega, and he spoke a lot on Techwood, and I seen a lot of footage on Techwood as well, but it just slipped my mind because in the documentary and the footage I've seen, it said that Techwood was the first project in America, but it happens.
In 1934, at Techwood, Atlanta, Georgia, began the first publicly financed effort in the United States to wipe off the face of the American map the jungle of slums.
But 60 years later, on the eve of Atlanta becoming the Centennial Olympic City, Techwood homes had become the jungle, where predators took over the neighborhood, causing a crime rate 35 times that of the city of Atlanta, the murder capital of the world.
We had crimes, we had street gangs. I can just remember a lot of people getting shot up and killed. I know why my mom always say, stay in the front of the house, you know, don't let me catch you around.
Apartments are very, very old, and they have to come in here constantly to keep them up. It's a danger to the tenants, some conditions, and it's bad for them. Sometimes the concrete cracks, and of course the children can eat that. That's not good.
Two-year-old Brandon munches on sausage at Techwood Homes. His mom hopes he hasn't tasted chips of lead paint as well, but she can't be sure.
I watch him. I'm real careful about him. I be watching him. So he go to the nurseries, but he don't get into stuff like that. But then again, he might.
In areas where the paint is already chipping like this one, it doesn't take much to grab another flake, and it doesn't take much for the child to swallow this. Lead paint can cause brain damage and learning disabilities. A study for the Atlanta Housing Authority found the problem at Techwood more severe than at any other housing project in Atlanta. Lead covers virtually every wall, ceiling, cupboard, and windowsill. Techwood was built in 1940 when lead paint was common and considered safe. These days, warnings to children are common.
She said cause the paint is like a chemical, and if you eat it, it'll get inside your body and it'll mess up your body, mess up your cells and stuff.
The Atlanta Housing Authority expects it will cost at least $4 million to remove the lead paint and relocate residents in the meantime. Workers did it at Capitol Homes, where 69-year-old Emily Hines was forced to move while the work was done. She now lives in this apartment where the walls are peeling again. Did you like having to move that distance to a new place?
We didn't like it. No, I didn't. I ain't liked it since I've been here. It looked like it made me sick to come down here in this junk. It's just something, and I'm just sick of it.
All was quiet tonight at Techwood Homes except for a small kitchen fire which brought out the fire department. Leaders of the patrol made their rounds in the community, then called it a night. But earlier today, residents patrolled the streets carrying painted baseball bats and guns, and police arrested resident Jerome Gibbs for carrying a weapon without a license. When he was taken away, others were so angry they surrounded a police car, saying they would not release it until Gibbs was let go. The standoff continued for about an hour. When Gibbs returned, the chairs were taken away and policemen drove away, the crowd chanting as they left.
Bye! Bye! And don't come back!
Don't come back here!
Goodbye and don't come back! Goodbye and don't come back! Goodbye and don't come back!
Patrol leaders say they will continue to police the neighborhood, and arrested or not, will continue to carry guns. From Techwood Homes, Bob Moore, Action News Tonight.
There isn't much to Terry Street in the Capitol Homes housing project. It's a small road and everyone here knows everyone else. All know the little girl charged with murder. Her friends say
Place burnt back in June, and she's tried to get them to come up here and paint it and replaster the wall, plus she's tried to get them to come up here and spray for the bugs. And she can't get housing authorities to do anything.
John Ramey has been the leader of a petition drive at Techwood and Clark Howell demanding better service. The petitioners want quicker reaction to complaints. But Ramey says the maintenance people don't seem to believe repairs are needed when tenants tell them about it, won't come to the apartments to see it themselves.
If you get anything done, you got to go through TV stations to get housing authorities to move.
Regardless of how much renovation and improvements are made on buildings, regardless of how much, there still will be people problems. As we were leaving, this woman stopped us. She says people always are breaking into her apartment and taking things.
I mean, I got to get out of here and get something done. The police won't offer me nothing. No protection. The housing authority won't offer me nothing. Everybody goes to them and tell them I'm a drunk and I'm a dope addict and I'm plumb crazy. So No, I get disability. I've had 21 operations.
Do you drink?
Once in a while, but I'm not a drunk. No.
Do you take drugs?
No, no.
Never?
I take drugs from Grady. They're Atarac. That's all.
One of the woman's neighbors says things got so bad he got a gun permit and tries to provide volunteer police protection.
You ever stood guard for her, try to protect her?
Nobody.
If I have to be, I would.
Nobody.
If I be around and see something happen, I would.
Yeah.
But see, nobody ever says I never see nothing happen. Hear nothing.
Have worked rings around the cedar workers that been hired to clean. The kids have. They did all this work from this area all the way back over. And you can see the work that these children have did compared to the grown people. Plus, they don't have enough help out in this community.
Have you approached the housing authority about it?
Housing authority been approached ever since 1971, and also Tyrone Hint been approached too about the necessity need in this community. But we cannot get anything out here, nothing but promises.
This makes the third summer for some of these kids. They've had to work with open dumpsters overflowing with trash. Residents say the trash bins attract large green flies and contribute to the delinquency in the area. Not far from this spot, one of the neighborhood girls was raped. Also, grass and weeds, some as high as 5 feet, have made it impossible for some residents to go out their back doors. Mrs. Green says there's a lot of work to be done, but sees some good coming out of the problem, a sense of community spirit. Why you working?
I think the community need it.
Why?
Because it just look bad.
Now that you cleaned it up, what do you think about it?
It look better.
Cleaning up the property here at Techwood Homes is not the only problem the tenants have had to face. For example, right here in this area, the tenants have had to put up with an odor that's been here for at least 3 months.
And we don't know what it is.
Can you live in the area with it?
Well, the way I do, I always shut the door or either close the windows.
Why?
Because it smells bad.
The neighbors are also concerned about this wire. It's attached to fuse boxes inside the apartments. They want it removed, but so far nothing's been done. They also want the authority to cover this ditch. But as Mrs. Green puts it, the only thing to do is work on what can be done and hope the authority will do the rest. From Techwood Homes, Bob Moore, Action News.
With residents carrying painted baseball bats and guns, the so-called bat patrols continued at Techwood Homes today. Leader Chimaranga Jenga reported last night's patrolling had been successful after the evening altercation with police when he and another man were taken into custody, and said residents had told him Friday was the neighborhood's quietest night in a long time. Today, patrollers walked the streets undisturbed by watching policemen, until resident Jerome Gibbs was arrested for carrying a gun. That angered the others so much they surrounded a police car, saying they would not release it until Gibbs was released. The standoff lasted about an hour. When Gibbs returned, the chairs were removed, and Techwood residents taunted departing policemen.
Bye. Bye. And don't come back.
Don't come back.
The tenants say that for years they've asked for proper maintenance in the projects where they live, but that no one listened.
Over the years, we've made the same requests. You know, it's always to the same kind of rhetoric.
You know, we're working it out, we're getting it done, but nothing never happens. And you ask the question, why now? It's time now, it's past time.
SCLC is spearheading this effort. The tenants want a management team to supervise maintenance and to make sure that money is spent properly. Last week, Action News reported that the city of Atlanta was preparing a suit against the Housing Authority for being a slum landlord. The Housing Authority has been under new leadership for over a year now. There have been some improvements, but the tenants say they are the wrong kind. Too many cosmetic changes. In the past 2 weeks, there have been several rapes in the Techwood project. The tenants say it's because of poor maintenance. 66-year-old Lena Williams is a good example. 2 men beat her and attempted to rape her. She thinks it was 2 men living in what was supposed to be an abandoned apartment next to hers. Another apartment I checked had been vacant for over a year. This is what we found. And the electricity was still on.
Lawyers for the tenants don't know what the courts or the federal government will do, but they'd like to see a court officer appointed to oversee the finances and the maintenance of the housing projects within the next 60 days. From Techwood Homes, Bob Moore, Action News.
The war in Israel is being used by the media to cover this up. I woke up to a
The federal government has awarded the city of Atlanta a $40 million grant to rebuild and revitalize one of the largest housing projects in the country.
11 Alive's Bobeth Yates joins us live with the details. Hey, Bobeth.
Hey there, Faith. Well, the Bowen housing development was built in the 60s and demolished in 2009. At the time,
but see, I wasn't here when it happened.
This is Mrs. Lilla Mae Reeves. This is the kitchen of her apartment in Techwood Homes. There was an accidental fire here more than a year ago, but it still hasn't been fixed by the AHA maintenance personnel.
They've been up here, but they ain't done nothing about it.
Why not?
Every time I go down there, they have kind of excuse. Well, Miss Reeves, I can't get to it, not right now. We fill up with busy.
Besides the burned-out kitchen, there are other things wrong. There are cracks in the walls of the hallway. On the outside, there's no doorknob. Just a couple of blocks away, still in Techwood Homes, William Johnson's apartment looks a lot better than the Reeves, but Johnson says it's got leaky walls, causing the inside surface to crack and peel.
When it rains, it leaks in it. And we've been trying to get that fixed about 2.5 years.
2.5 years?
Yes.
And what do they tell you?
They always say they'll come in and fix it, but nobody never shows up to fix it.
Would you please fill this out so we can be sure that your child will be safe while the summer?
When Demita Carter's mother signed her in about 7:30 this morning, there were only 4 other children for her to play with. The Techwood Homes Recreation Center director had been expecting 70. As the city had promised, a policeman did come by to check on the tiny group, but the color-coded T-shirts were still downtown, and there had been no word on lunch deliveries. At Cone Park, though, it looked and sounded like a typical first day of camp.
My name is Cassandra. How do you do? How do you do?
But both campers and parents knew why they were there.
They are safe, you know, we needed someone to look after them while we are working because we have to work, you know. And we feel like we can leave them here and we feel safe with them here.
You won't be in the streets and that way you'll prevent from getting kidnapped.
Registration at Clark College was fast and furious. 135 children signed up by 9:30. Officials told parents the T-shirts would arrive next week when attendance patterns had settled in. Many of the 250 children at the JFK Center brought their lunches, and it was a good thing. Lunches supplied by the city did not arrive until about 1:30 there, and at the Techwood Center, not until 2:30. Super Summer planners had always predicted there'd be a lot of playing it by ear at first. Today, Mayor Jackson said the program's shakedown would probably last about 2 weeks. On Friday, program officials will meet to assess the week on by to see what needs to be changed and where. But at this Super Summer site, at least, it looked like all systems were go.
What are we here for?
Good evening, I'm John Marler.
I'm Brenda Wood.
It appears certain tonight that come 1996, Olympic athletes of the world will be living in the shadow of one of the nation's oldest housing projects. With the deadline for a decision bearing down and tempers running high, People who live at Techwood and Clark Howell Homes have agreed to sell some property to Olympic organizers. Channel 5's Ken McLeod has the story.
Get some order here. Hold it now. Wait a minute.
Amid shouting and finger-pointing about most every problem that has ever plagued public housing projects, Atlanta Housing Authority Director Earl Phillips tried time and time again to focus the crowd on the subject at hand.
Here is an opportunity for us, as a team, as a family, as a community, to finally, together, do something that's going to turn this neighborhood around.
The Atlanta Committee for the Olympic Games wants to buy this 4.6-acre sliver off the northeast side of Techwood Homes for about $4 million. Officials say that money would then be used to relocate the residents of these 112 units and to boost education and job training programs for all residents of Techwood Clark Howell Homes. Lisa Clerk would have to move, and she welcomes it.
Yes, I want out of Techwood, because Techwood ain't nothing. It ain't nothing but a health hazard to us and to our children.
This is the second vote on ACOG's proposal. It was approved by one tenants group last year. But when the legitimacy of that vote was challenged by other residents here, incoming Atlanta Housing Authority Director Earl Phillips decided another vote was in order. Faced with a June deadline, officials argued a yes vote would not only clear the way for ACOG to buy the land, but also trigger a domino effect of neighborhood improvements that would be around long after the Olympics. A no vote from tenants would stop it all cold. As people waded through the controlled chaos to vote, some opponents insisted the whole thing was just another empty promise. But most residents didn't seem to buy that.
We are not going to continue to tolerate this dungeon that we have to live in. And the only way we're going to be able to do so is to have adequate cash.
This first plan here is going to open the door for the rest of the community to get it.
Ago, during the problems at Atlanta Area Technical School, he was a student there and became active in the fight against what he and his cohorts called the racist administration. When taxi drivers at the Atlanta airport were complaining about the treatment they were getting from the city and the airport officials and the police, he was there. He was there when bus drivers for National Transportation Service confronted the Atlanta School Board over vehicle safety. And when the Techwood Homes Tenant Association announced it was organizing armed patrols through the housing project, he was there too. Who is this man?
Everybody attempts to make their home as decent and as livable as they possibly can. I'm not a professional organizer. I'm not a member of any group, association, party, or anything like that. I'm simply a citizen here who's concerned about the state of the city.
His name is Chimarenga Jenga. He is 31 years old and has lived all his life in Atlanta, except for the time he spent in Vietnam. He says he goes nowhere where he is not wanted. He does not get involved where he is not asked. He says he has been asked to help organize the Techwood patrols. Lately, he has been pressed by reporters who question his motives.
I really think that it's wrong, though, to picture me as a professional troublemaker, activist, or anything like that, because I'm not. The only thing I really want is to be able to go about the city and do everything else in the city that everybody else does. But I can't do that as long as a significant sector of the city's population is excluded from free mobility, up financially, educational-wise, and things like that.
Chimarenga is aware he frightens people both by his looks and his actions. He rather enjoys that. He will not change either. You will see him again. Mark Picard, Action News.
There were no bat patrols out at 10 this morning in Techwood, but there were news crews, and there were police patrols, too. We asked numerous residents what they thought about the patrols, and they all said basically the same thing.
I think it's stupid. I just don't think they're doing any good. It doesn't make sense. You're grown people running around and hollering and with a bunch of sticks, and eventually it's going to lead to serious trouble.
I don't go along with it because it's not solving anything.
But now it's your tenants association that's doing this.
Yes, I know, but I still don't think it's right what they're doing.
This weekend, even the police chief complained. He accused the patrols of using outside agitators who, with their insistence on carrying weapons, are sapping valuable police resources. And now other tenant groups are declaring they won't start bat patrols in their projects either. So the criticism of the bat patrol comes from all sides, and much of it's directed at this Techwood apartment, which is home of Israel Green, who's head of the Techwood Homes Tenant Association. Mr. Green didn't want to talk to us on camera today, But off camera, he and I did talk at length. Israel Green is no outside agitator. He was elected to head the Tenants Association by the 1,200 who live here, although usually only about 200 or so vote in those elections. But it's people like Shemarenga Jenga who've been getting most of the attention, people who don't live in Techwood. Green says he readily accepts help from outsiders who live close like Jenga and others who live further away like the Socialist Workers' Party and even the Russians who sent this lamp from Moscow. One reason he accepts their help, he says, it's been so tough getting other help from the city. He says his group isn't popular around here because they've attracted police, and that's cut down on the drug and the illegal liquor and gambling that goes on in Techwood. He says they aren't after the publicity, they just want to protect their children. So the bat patrols are still out, and that's okay with police, as long as they don't break the law. Gary Reeves, Action News.
Have you been suffering from the after effects of a car crash? The good news is you're still entitled to a 5 or 6.
It began last night when red paint was splattered on the offices of the Special Police Task Force investigating the children's murders. An East Point man was charged with vandalism. And that was the first indication that May Day 1981 could be a rough time for police. Plainclothesmen and 8 uniformed officers waited outside the task force office this morning when 2 members of the Revolutionary Communist Party arrived to read a statement. The news conference was moved across the street when the crowd of reporters blocked the task force entrance. The speaker supported the paint throwing as a symbol of police failure to stop the child murders.
I'm not telling you that I have the name of the murderer. I'm telling you that this...
I take a terrible picture, but I couldn't expect to take a good one.
This is 83-year-old Annie McCoo. She's lived in the same upstairs apartment.
It began last night when red paint was splattered on the offices of the Special Police Task Force investigating the children's murders. An East Point man was charged with vandalism. And that was the first indication that May Day 1981 could be a rough time for police.
It was easy to see it coming, these incidents that happened over the past weekend here at Techwood Homes. The people here are concerned about what is happening. They are frightened about the safety of their children, as well they should be. Despite the best efforts of the Atlanta Police Department, the person or persons who are killing Atlanta's children are still on the loose. And now, in a move of desperation, the residents here have decided to protect their children as best they can.
The entire situation has been turned into a circus. The child killings have taken on racial overtones because of some so-called community leaders who see a chance for some personal publicity or gain. Suddenly, every activist group in the city has taken up the cause, and the professional agitators have only muddied the waters. There are news.
But Slum 1200 GGI Mob shit, man. Y'all hit that like button, hit that comment section. You did hit that subscribe button and stay plugged. I'll be back. GGI Mob shit.
I bleed the streets, I am the struggle. Yeah, I'm the struggle. I bleed the streets, I am the struggle. Yeah, I'm the street. I bleed the streets, I am the struggle. Play the cuts like peroxide, waiting to bubble. Still trapping with this rapping, yeah, I'm going in. Trying to murder everything, even the pad and pen. No witnesses, no survivors. Red Cross, Glock fire, hot lava. Head